If you notice, there's only a brake pedal. Gas pedal is obviously going to be another gas pedal, but there is no clutch pedal. So that means I need to take this brake pedal, pull it out, trim it down, and add in a clutch pedal, which I have right here. So now we've got the brake pedal out, we need to turn it into a manual brake pedal, which means about half of this needs to be cut off. And I learned this one from watching my brother's channel. Easiest way about doing it is using this pad as a template. So you're going to trim off what you don't need and slip this pad right in your brake pedal here. And as you can see here, the impact point, the strongest, I guess the most pressure point going onto the lever, is still right in the center of where you're going to be pushing on the brake. So that is very, very good. So now I'm just going to trim this off right here, and then I'll be able to round it out and slip that new brake pad on here, make it look all nice. Alright, there we have it. Looks like a nice factory brake pedal there. A lot shorter than that automatic pedal. So now the clutch pedal will actually fit inside that little area. So I'm actually going to spray this down, clean it up a little bit, make it look nice and clean again before I throw this back in there. So now the fun part, trying to get the clutch pedal and the brake pedal all lined up. I guess first thing I should probably do is probably wire up this little clevis on here onto the end of the clutch cable, so then it just slips on in, and yeah. So this is going to be really hard to film in here, so I'm not going to actually film as I'm working on this, but as you can see, no pedals right now. And ka-chow! Okay, so obviously there's outfit change because I was working on this last night, trying to get everything in. I got everything working, got everything perfect. The clutch pedal sat about right here. Sat way too high. Long story short, I had to take everything completely out. It took me like another 2 hours to get everything out, adjusted, everything back in. But now, as you can see, I do have the two pedals. So this here is the bracket. These four bolt behind these four bolts right here and fit right behind this brake master cylinder. Then this follows the kind of curve right here, brings it up, and we're going to be hollowing out that hole. And that's where we're going to be putting our clutch cable through. And then from there, it's going to loop through and then back down to the transmission itself. Awesome. So just gotta throw this back in through there, bolt everything back together. So the original gas pedal was based off of a rod. So you press on the rod goes through and does all that. That does not work because I'm not using a rod anymore, I'm using a cable. And I could have gone through the electric way where it's all electrical actuated, basically drive by wire, but I didn't really want to have to do that, and I don't really like that idea for an old school muscle. I like having that throttle cable. So this is a gas pedal from, I want to say it was like a 69 to 73 Mustang, and it almost bolts right in. Unfortunately, the bolt holes are opposite, but yeah, I'm just gonna have to drill some holes in there and then mount it up that way. But it gives me the option of throwing a cable on here. So there is one thing that I've found that is causing some issues. The gas pedal is actually sitting too flush up against the firewall, so as you're pushing it down, it touches the carpet and it doesn't actually fully actuate both directions. So I need to build a bracket that brings it a little bit away from the firewall. So my plan for the bracket is going to take two 1-inch square tubes, measured it out to 60 millimeters or 2.5-ish inches. Basically, it's going to be the length of the mounting bracket. I'm going to do one for either side. Now, the gap is too big in the center to do just those two, and I don't really want to have a gap in the middle. I'm going to cut a piece of flat steel and drill into the hole through the center, lining everything up, and welding a nut on the back side inside of the tube so I don't have to hold a wrench in there when I'm trying to tighten the pedal down. All right, and there we have it. Got a nice bracket here. So what I did was I took these 2 square 1-inch tubes and basically lined up with the edge, drew out the holes, marked it all up, welded it all together. It may not look beautiful right now because it's just ground down and welded up. I am going to paint it, but once it's in the car, because I need to weld this to the firewall inside the car. So that puts basically all the pressure spread out across both these two onto the firewall. So I wasn't really able to mock it up and video at the same time. I would have used 3 hands for that, but I only got the 2. Got the bracket welded in, as you can see here, and I got the 2 holes ready to mount the gas pedal to. I did paint it, so it's gonna dry up for a little bit, then I can mount that gas pedal right up in there. But overall, it looks pretty good. I like how it's sitting, and I like how it's mounted up. And voila! Now we have the correct amount of pedals down here. We got all 3 of them. Now I need to get the throttle cable through the firewall and up to the intake manifold and onto the throttle body. Okay, and there we have it. Throttle cable's in, so now I should just have to bleed the brakes, and all the brake system's done, all the pedal systems are done, and it should be ready to rock and roll. You notice something is missing completely right here. So the steering wheel. The steering column originally goes through the steering box that's usually down there. I got rid of all that. Obviously, we're not going to use that same box. We're going to use the rack and pinions, so now I have to do a complete different setup for this. I need to put the steering column through and then bolt it in, and then on the outside mark where it's going to be at. So I actually need to cut the steering column down by, I don't know, probably 12 inches or so. So then the new steering rod will go all the way through and actually be able to stick out the end, hook up to some linkages, and go down the power steering rack. Now that I got this trimmed up a little bit, got this roller bearing that sits in the end of the steering column. And this is where the steering rod's going to actually hang out at and kind of stay in place there. Now I should be able to put the steering rod back in here, and I should stick out just a little bit. Alright, looks like that's going to be just about perfect there. Cool. I've got to turn the camera on, but so once I got this fully seated in here, I just do a couple tack welds around the corners here. It doesn't have to hold any of the weight, it's just staying in place just so the steering shaft can kind of rest on it with all the motion going down and then spinning on it. I can throw this guy right back in the car and then bolt it all up and then start hooking up all the steering linkages to the steering rack from the steering column. Now that the rod going through is not supporting down to the original steering gearbox, we have to support the steering column a little bit more. And it does look like 2 of the holes will line up, but the 3rd one does not, which is fine. I'll just do a self-tapper through that. But I can get these 3 in there, slid the steering column back through, then clamp it on down. Now I've got the steering column back in. It's time to put this guy back on. just trying to get it in the hole. Gotta thread all the way down, get in the hole at the bottom to that little bearing. Okay, that took a little bit of effort. I had to reach around into the engine bay, put my arm through the edge of the door, and then kind of like put my finger up in there and kind of wiggle its way into it, which was fun. So now I've got to get this guy on here. Not quite all the way, but pretty close. Alright, now I got to jump to the other side. And you can see down here we got the splines coming out the end of the little bearing there. Got this guy with the splines on one side, and it turns into a straight rod on the other side. I have a piece of straight rod I got to cut down to size, and then this guy I'm just going to clamp on, crawl underneath, and then see what sizes we need for that. And I'm really, really hoping it clears my exhaust. Here's to hope. So this part's going to be a little difficult, trying to get them lined up, pointing at each other as close as I can. And then I got to measure between the two, so then I can know just about how far I need to cut it. Got them pretty close. And back on over to the dirty bench vise here. So I measured it out. It looks like got 14 1/4 inches. And that's not measuring from all the way in. That's actually measuring to the edge of the lips, which I'll show you here when I mount it on. But we're looking at 14 1/4. That's longer than I was expecting. Alright, I gotta get that a little higher there, but let's mark it out first. Theoretically, that should fit. Alright, so like I was saying, this guy here. Alright, so now that that's in there, I just gotta jump over there, put it in, and then start tightening it all down. Now that I got this on here, I should be able to slide this a little extra into the column side, so that I can get the splines down on that side. In theory. Let's see how that works. Man, that clearance, that clearance is so close, but the whole engine, when it does rotate that direction, so it will not come over and will not hit, and that is perfect clearance right there for what we're looking for. Yes! So, theoretically now, we have wheel movement. Yes! All I gotta do now is tighten that down, add some power steering lines, and the build is done? At least enough that I need to go take it for a test drive. Yes! If you haven't already, please hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and we're gonna see you guys next week.